So the Oscars just happened. And I think we both were fairly pleased with the split of how everything went. But it was also something I was really personally excited as a, very TV oriented person, to see, people like Michael B. Jordan, getting their flowers who started in television. And I mean, he just is, I think everybody can universally agree that we're all thrilled for him. I see no downside to that one.
Yeah, I was really excited about that. I mean, to be fair, I also thought Timothy Chalamet was fantastic in Marty Supreme, and I would have been happy in terms of the performance if he had won. And Marty Supreme, I thought was an excellent movie, but Sinners really kind of captured the zeitgeist in 2025, and Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan together have been just doing exceptional work for years and years. I'm still somewhat shocked that Michael B. Jordan didn't even get an Oscar nomination for Black Panther, which I thought was a really exceptional performance. So yeah, I thought, Michael B. Jordan in an era where we seem to have fewer and fewer real deal movie stars, capital M,
Yeah.
capital S movie stars, he really feels like one. And I think he's someone that people really admire for the body of work that he's put together and feel like they know. And obviously they don't. None of us know
Hmm.
Michael B. Jordan, but he's been on our screens since he was a very young teenager on The Wire. And so seeing the growth from playing a supporting role there to, playing two giant roles in probably the biggest movie of the year, it feels like we've sort of followed him on a long journey and he's done really incredible work all the way through. So that it felt like a real capstone. And I think Hollywood often has this inclination of like, okay, we're not going to give it to the performer who actually gave a great performance. We're instead going to give it to the older performer to
Hmm.
make up for all the times that we didn't give it to them previously. And I'm glad that we're breaking out of that a little bit and like honoring good performances as they happen in real time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seemed like it was between those two from the start, and Timothy Chalamet really appreciates your support at this time. Uh, this, I just briefly want to say, like, this whole controversy over him saying that opera and ballet don't matter, is so. I mean, maybe we just all love it because it's kind of a victimless crime in a weird, you know what I mean? Like it's sort of that old-timey kind of controversy of like everybody kind of wins, we can all have opinions, we can all get in on it, but it's not like the stakes are not an Iran war situation.
Yes.
That's my
Ballet and opera.
theory. Because honestly, I said something to my partner Jesse when he said something nice about Timothy Chalamet recently. And he was like, "Wait, what happened?" And I explained it, and he was like, "Oh, well, okay, she it wasn't Me Too'd or anything." And I was like, "No, but everyone's kind of acting like it." Like,
Right.
I also have a theory that this was wanting it too much,
Yes.
and there's like a number. It's like people were so on his side just last year, or maybe even 6 months ago. I myself included. I'm not like against him now, but like everyone was just like Timothy Chalamet, right? And then I don't know, like he was doing all these stunty things and saying provocative things, and he's dating a Kardashian Jenner, and I think that kind of stirred up some like backlash for him. And he'll probably, I bet he'll get one eventually. He's very, very good. And I'm sure he's in it for the long haul. He probably has learned his lesson too. That, I mean, I don't think what he said was that horrific, but it clearly hit a nerve. And I was like, it's just the kind of thing you say like at home while you're drinking wine with your friends. You
Yeah.
don't say that in an interview when you are specifically out there trying to get an Oscar.
I do wonder how many people actually have strong feelings about ballet and opera who are offended, as opposed to feeling like it's just the wrong thing to say. Like ballet and opera have been around for hundreds of years. I'm guessing they'll still be fine, even after Timothy Chalamet made his opinion known about them.
100%. I think there's like some deep stuff in there, and I do think like it's also just catnip for like think pieces or
Yeah.
think videos, right? That are like, because I understand some of the resentment there that's like it's just not cool to degrade any other kind of art form. And especially like honestly, it's a little bit snotty to be like, I'm in the one that everyone pays attention to. Like I have friends in opera, so I am a little bit aware of this. And it's like they can't make a living. So he's not wrong. In some ways, he's dead right. But like, also have respect for people who do other art forms and like suffer for their art. Like,
Yes.
I think that's what it's like class resentment and that kind of thing too. And I do think he was just probably due for a backlash
You know,
soon.
we like to knock everyone down a peg or three, and
Yeah.
he felt like I think he had become the internet's boyfriend for a while, and so almost inevitably, then there's going to be a cohort of people who turn on him or on
Yeah.
anyone. I don't think it's specific to him.
I think it'll also totally die down. My third theory about this is just that like it just was like good for jokes because again it wasn't that serious. So it was just there's no world in which this doesn't make it into the opening monologue, right?
Yeah.
It just like this has to be there. Speaking of the opening monologue, Conan did great again.
He's great. I thought he was terrific. He clearly is just like very comfortable in this role and feels like the right person for it. And it kind of feels like the beginning of a longer pathway that he's going to keep coming back because he's so clearly the ideal host. And I think just nails it. I felt like he even nailed what feels like sort of the trickier material for him of kind of being uh, serious about the nature of art and appreciation of culture, which is sort of not his usual forte. And I thought he did really well with that. And I loved the opening sequence, bringing in like the kids from, or kids like the kids from Weapons to chase him through all the different movies. I thought that was just so funny and so clever. And yeah, he struck the right tone. And, the Oscars, I think, have had some ups and downs in terms of the hosts that they've had. And I was glad to see Billy Crystal come out because it
Yeah.
sort of reminded me like this feels like a Billy Crystal-esque era of just like having exactly the right person doing the job.
Yeah, and I mean that tribute I thought was like tremendous. The tribute to Rob Reiner was, exactly what I wanted and didn't know. The tributes are great. It's I guess we're do you feel did we like lose a disproportionate number of big stars? Is it just that like Hollywood is maturing and they're all die? It just felt like wow, we really did lose some huge people this year.
I think it's also a matter of eras. I think for a while, the people who were dying were titans of a somewhat previous era, right? Like
Yeah.
40s, 50s, 60s. And now it's more like people from the 70s, 80s, 90s. And maybe for people like ourselves, that's
Mm,
hitting a little bit closer to home. And obviously, the circumstances of Rob Reiner's
mm.
death just made it even more so, where like it felt very emotional just to see someone talking about him.
Yeah, for sure. And as we're talking about this more and more, I'm realizing it kind of was the TV Oscars. Like, and maybe that has to do more with like those worlds are merging more, naturally than they used to. But like Rob Reiner started on television. I mean, even Billy Crystal started on television. And so did Michael B. Jordan and, and Conan, like Conan
Yeah.
is a TV star specifically, which has not always been the case. Like Billy Crystal was not there as a TV star. He was there as a movie star when he was hosting and Whoopi Goldberg and like those kinds of people. I know we've also had like disastrously Dave Letterman.
Yes.
That's the Uma Oprah thing.
Yeah, no, let's not go back there. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, Conan is such a TV guy that he was actually in one of the Oscar nominees this year. If I had legs, I'd kick you. And when he
Mhm.
showed up, he's playing sort of this very dour therapist role that's not funny at all, except that, sort of accidentally. And almost like sat back in my seat being like, wait, what? You're in a movie? Like, what's going on? And you're like not being funny. It was such a surprise. But I think one of the things that I'd mentioned as well was that it just felt like a really deep bench of movies this year. Like clearly, One Battle After Another and Sinners were the two frontrunners, but even amongst the 10 Best Picture nominees and the other nominees in the acting categories, documentary, international film, there just were a tremendous amount of really high quality films that were nominated. I think one part of it is that the Oscars have actually started to do better at nominating better movies. They're always good movies. The Oscars just often overlook many of them. And I think having a more international voting body and having a younger voting body and a more diverse one has made a really big difference so that they just pick, there's still going to be your F1s out there, which, is perfectly fine, but like, what is it doing here? Um,
It's just the
but
10 nominations. When they go that broad, it's a little too broad, but I think they want that. They want the chance of Brad Pitt showing up. So,
I think so. And, having enough space to cram F1 in there also allows you to get in The Secret Agent and movies like that. So, or Train Dreams, which I don't think would make it in a five film field. So
right.
I see a lot of upside to it. And I think I'm glad. I was worried that people were going to lean in the direction because I felt like there were two sort of titans duking it out this year between One
Hmm.
Battle and Sinners, and obviously only one of them can win. And I was worried that the takeaway was going to be like, fill in the blank film was snubbed. And
Yep.
I think instead, maybe in part just because of happenstance and like each of the movies getting a whole bunch of Oscars, it didn't really feel that way. It felt much more like, okay, we actually had a really good year here in the world of movies, and we got to honor a bunch of them. And it felt much more celebratory and less like, the usual day after headlines of like, who was snubbed?
Yep. Yeah, I actually found it really satisfying because I know something weird happened. I think it's so interesting because when the people who treat this as like a team sport, there was this feeling of like people rooting for Sinners for some reason and not One Battle specifically. And I really loved both. I mean, I
Me too.
loved One Battle so much that my partner and I went and rewatched all of Paul Thomas Anderson's catalog. Like that was how it's so good, but maybe it's like the farther away. Well, no, that's not true because Sinners was even farther away. I don't know. Maybe it was just the charm of Michael B. Jordan alone that made us do that. Maybe people are like, ugh, DiCaprio, whatever. I don't know. But I found it like the split was just like so perfect. And I think it's kind of impressive because I work for the Peabody Awards, and I can tell you, like, we pick 30 winners every year. And the reason I'm explaining this is because, like, it's like they're in a room together, the jurors, and they like decide, like, this is the 30 things that like represent this year. This is not like that. These are each individual votes. So it's not like the committee got together and went like, oh, I think the way to do this is to give,
Yeah.
director to PTA and best picture to the movie, but then Michael B. Jordan. Like they weren't parsing it out. That's just luck. So it turned out like it was one of the nicest, most satisfying results I've ever felt. It just felt very like, okay, great. That seemed great. No, no big shocks, no big snubs, no big anything. Just everything felt exactly like what we wanted. So,
Yeah. And I think in a time where I've sort of been worried, I think that movies are declining in significance, that they've just sort of retreated from the center of American popular culture, that people engage with them less, think about them less. These felt like two really good, really enjoyable, really important movies that people really liked. And so seeing them honored like this was a reminder of what movies can do. And they also, I mean, to sort of bring in the obvious, in a moment that feels exceptionally unsettled and unsettling, they both were very blatantly and clearly political movies. And interestingly, there was almost no discussion of that at the Oscars
hmm
themselves, which I thought
hmm
was a little surprising, but the movies themselves are unambiguous about how political they are.
for sure. And you just made me think too that like they both really like sparked conversation. Both of those movies for me were ones where like people would say it. Like I remember when Sinners came out and people were like, "Did you see it?" Like they wanted to talk about it. And I went to see One Battle with like a big group of friends, and we like it was very, very cold outside. And when we got done, like we kept standing there talking about it, and we finally had to be like, "Okay, we're leaving because it's freezing cold." Like people wanted to talk about it, and then the couple more times when I saw some of those friends, they still wanted to talk to me about it. Like
Yeah.
that's very, and they're pretty original. I know like, One Battle's like based loosely on a book and stuff, but these are pretty original movies, and that's something we really need too. So all in all, it was really great. And we noticed something that was very specific to us, which is that we're working on a big story that is going to run starting on the 27th, where we're sort of calculating which TV casts of this, since 2000, um, are the most successful. So like have had other works since, not reboots, not anything like that, just like new works, new Emmy nominations, new Oscar nominations. And Michael B. Jordan, we know from this, we were already onto this. He was one, maybe our biggest MVP of everyone. Like, and it's also astounding that he started in two of his first things were The Wire and Friday Night Lights, which like
It's
can't do
hard
better than
not to
that.
go, yeah, it's hard not to go down from that, but he managed to somehow pull that off. So yeah, it was fascinating to see some of the ways in which people like Michael B. Jordan and Jesse Plemons, who we also saw at the Oscars, had sort of gotten their start in some of these great shows that we were looking at and trying to assess the weight and significance of their casts. And it was really cool to kind of have the capstone to the story that we've been working on and that we're really excited about be Michael B. Jordan winning the Oscar and kind of, reaching this new peak in his career.
And I mean, I think we say this in the piece, and you are the one who said it, who actually wrote it. But like, if you cast Jesse Plemons and Michael B. Jordan on Friday Night Lights, like your job is done here. You like these two. I don't know if we would have guessed. Maybe you'd guess Michael B. Jordan, but I don't think we would have guessed that these two would be, you know, perennial Oscar contender level artists, and it's very exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that there was this, the initial Oscar for casting being given out this
Yes.
year because obviously this is TV, but it's sort of you feel like whoever cast those two performers as teenagers on Friday Night Lights definitely deserves all the awards that are out there. And the other thing is that stardom is surprising and unpredictable. Like of
Yeah.
all the people on Friday Night Lights, the very clear candidate to be the initial breakout star from the show was Taylor Kitsch, who people
Hmm.
loved and who's great. And
He's
it's not
great.
it's not to say anything bad about him, but that didn't quite work out. And instead, some of the kind of supporting cast members who I think did not appear to have that same immense star potential ended up having much richer and longer and more fascinating careers.
I think it really speaks to expectations too, which I think is like the number one thing in all of entertainment, period. End of story. It's like, you fly too close to the sun, people start going like, this isn't that great. What's so great about him or what's so great about this show? And, the expectations were enormous for him. I just remember some of those early big blockbusters that they put him in. And it's like the minute that that tanks, you're sort of done. And this, I think the slow build is sort of the way to go. And, Jesse Plemons, I think in particular, really proved that. And I love seeing his enormous, wonderful career. He seems like he's in such a sweet spot. I don't know anything about the man personally, but like, you're like with Kirsten Dunst and you're just like kind of always probably going to be nominated for an Oscar.
Yes.
It's just it's just seems like, but you're not like a huge gossip target or, paparazzi target. You're just kind of like, I'm really good at my job. The end. It's great.
Yeah. Just doing good work and getting hired for it again and again.
It's great
Seems
to
like a
see.
good place to be.